There are things men will never tell you, not because they cannot speak them, but because to confess them would strip away the mask they cling to. They live behind this mask, and as long as you remain blind to it, they will control you with silence, with charm, with half-truths. But if you pierce it, if you discover these three secrets, they lose their power. You see them as they are, not as they pretend to be. Understand me. Most men walk through life unaware of their own shadow. They present strength, but it conceals fear. They display confidence, but it hides insecurity. They offer love, but it is tangled with need. And so they build masks. Masks to protect themselves, masks to deceive you, masks to keep their own unconscious at bay. If you cannot see through these masks, you will live as their victim. You will spend years wondering why you always feel unseen, unheard, unloved, while the truth was before you all along. Imagine the first path, the path of blindness. You meet a man who dazzles you with charm. He knows how to flatter, how to listen, how to promise. You give him your heart, only to find months later that his warmth has turned cold. He withdraws into silence, punishes you with distance, and you are left begging for scraps of attention. You tell yourself, perhaps I did something wrong, perhaps I am too much, or not enough. But the truth is this, you were deceived by the mask. His silence was not mystery, it was control. His charm was not devotion, it was manipulation. And because you did not know the secret, you gave him power. On this path, years pass. You move from one man to another, always repeating the same pattern. You are drawn to the promise, blinded by the mask, wounded by the reality. Your friends whisper, why does she always choose the wrong men? And you, in your heart, begin to despair. You ask yourself if love is even possible, or if every man will use you and discard you. That is the fate of the woman who does not learn these secrets. But now, imagine the other path, the path of awakening. You listen, you learn, you see. A man begins to flatter you, and you hear the emptiness beneath his praise. Another withdraws into silence, and you recognize the tactic. Another boasts of his strength, but you see the fear he conceals. You are no longer deceived. You see through the mask at once, and you walk away before he has the chance to entangle you. And how will the world see you then? Your friends will marvel. They will say, she always knows. She never falls for their tricks. She chooses wisely. Your family will respect you. They will see that you no longer waste your years on men who cannot meet you. And when at last you stand beside a man who does not wear a mask, who has faced his shadow, who does not fear your intelligence or your strength, they will praise you. They will say, she chose well. And you yourself will feel it. You will feel free, unchained, safe. This is what these three secrets will give you. The power to see through illusion, the strength to walk away without regret, the clarity to choose a man who is not ruled by his shadow, but who has confronted it. Do not underestimate the danger of ignoring this. If you drift, if you listen casually, you will miss the signs, and then you will find yourself again with a man who drains you, again excusing his cruelty as passion, again mistaking his silence for depth. You will lose another year, another decade, bound to a mask instead of to a man. But if you stay, if you listen as though your very soul depended upon it, everything changes. You will no longer confuse charm with love. You will no longer mistake control for care. You will no longer give your life to shadows. You will be free to walk among men without fear, to choose wisely, to live whole. I will show you three dark secrets men hope you never discover. Secrets they guard, secrets they live by, secrets they will never confess. And once you see them, you will never again be deceived by the mask. You will know instantly when he is hiding, when he is projecting, when he is controlling, and you will walk away with ease. Your future stands at a crossroads. On one path, blindness, regret, wasted years, friends whispering pity, your own heart weary with disappointment. On the other path, clarity, respect, admiration, freedom, and the joy of choosing a man who is whole. The choice is yours. Listen carefully, and you will know the mask when you see it. You will know the truth men never admit, and you will never again be fooled. Introduction: the mask and the mirror. From the beginning of human consciousness, man has hidden behind a mask. It was his first tool, his first weapon, his first defense against the terror of being seen. The mask was born not from deceit, but from fear, the fear that to stand naked before another soul would reveal how fragile he truly is. It has changed its form through the ages, once a painted face upon a warrior, later the calm assurance of a gentleman, but its essence remains the same: protection against exposure. Every man carries two faces. The first is the persona, the one he offers to the world, capable, decisive, strong. The second is his shadow, which he hides even from himself: his fears, his inadequacy, his longing to be held, his unspoken shame. The more he identifies with the first, the more the second grows in power, lurking beneath the surface like a submerged continent. He becomes divided, half light, half darkness, one living in public view, the other whispering in dreams. Civilization itself conspires in the making of his mask. From childhood, he is told not to cry, not to falter, not to reveal weakness. He learns that acceptance depends on performance. So, he builds himself into an ideal, a conqueror, a thinker, a protector, and the world rewards him for it. Yet every accolade, every success, every approving glance only strengthens his imprisonment. He begins to believe that he is the mask, and that without it, he would cease to exist. It is no wonder, then, that the intelligent or intuitive woman unsettles him. Her gaze pierces the disguise that others mistake for confidence. She sees not a man of strength, but a man in armor. And armor, however polished, speaks of fear. Her presence confronts him with what he most dreads: the possibility that his identity is not real, that his greatness is only compensation for a hidden wound. Many men cannot bear such sight. They turn away, or they strike, or they charm her into blindness again. The mask is not evil, it is necessary. Every soul must wear some form of it to live among others. But when the mask becomes self, when the symbol devours the man it was meant to protect, tragedy begins. The hero archetype, once noble, becomes vanity. He no longer serves life, he serves image. His ambition turns from discovery to display, from devotion to dominance. He becomes a prisoner of applause. The greater the praise he receives, the less he feels alive. For no one can love a mask, and no one can sustain being loved for what he is not. Charm and seduction emerge from this hunger for validation. He learns to read the faces of women, as one reads maps, searching for the shortest route to adoration. He listens, not to understand, but to identify what she wishes to see. He reflects it back like polished glass. What she calls chemistry is often only recognition of her own ideal reflected through him. His charm is a skill refined by need. Behind every gesture lies an unspoken plea: tell me I exist. Yet the tragedy is doubled, for woman participates in this dance unknowingly. Her psyche, rich in empathy, feels his hunger and mistakes it for love. Where he seeks reflection, she offers care. Where he projects emptiness, she responds with nurture. Thus, an economy forms between them. He borrows vitality from her. She receives purpose from him. Each sustains the other's illusion. But while he gains energy, she loses essence. Slowly, she becomes less herself, more mirror. Her intuition dulls. Her laughter fades. Her heart grows tired under the weight of his shadow. The intelligent woman suffers most, for she senses the falseness, yet cannot name it. She feels unseen, though constantly observed, desired, yet not known. She suspects that his admiration is not for her soul, but for what she reflects of his own. And when she protests, when she dares to reveal that she perceives the difference, he recoils. You imagine too much, he says. You are too sensitive. And in this way, the gaslight of unconsciousness keeps burning. Still, I do not condemn the man for wearing the mask. It is the expression of a deeper wound that belongs to our entire civilization, the wound of separation between soul and image, between being and appearance. The mask is a symbol of man's effort to protect his dignity in a world that shames emotion. It is the armor of those who were never taught that strength may coexist with vulnerability. And yet, while it may shield him from exposure, it also shields him from love. For true relationship begins only where the mask ends. The meeting of souls cannot occur through performance. It demands presence. But presence is terrifying to the one who has built his identity upon illusion. When such a man encounters a woman who sees, he feels as though she has stripped him bare. He senses her gaze, not as affection, but as judgment. Her seeing awakens his buried self, and that self cries out in confusion. He may grow cold, or cruel, or suddenly distant. The woman believes she has done something wrong. In truth, she has only seen too clearly. To see through the mask is a form of initiation. It is the first threshold of consciousness. One must look upon the false without hatred, and upon the true without arrogance. The purpose is not to destroy the mask, but to understand it, to know when it protects and when it imprisons. For the mask itself is not the enemy. It is the ignorance of the mask that enslaves. To pierce illusion is not cynicism. It is awakening. The woman who learns to see acquires immense power not over men, but over her own destiny. She ceases to be a victim of flattery or withdrawal. She no longer confuses dominance with devotion, silence with mystery, or confidence with consciousness. She moves through the world discerningly, reading gestures as symbols, words as echoes of deeper currents. She sees not only the man's actions, but the archetype behind them, the hero in conflict with his shadow, the king haunted by the child he disowned. These are the truths that lie hidden behind male behavior, the secrets men hope you never discover because they do not know them themselves. They fear what would happen if the mask were lifted, for beneath it lies everything they have been taught to suppress: fear, dependence, tenderness, need. Yet only by seeing these hidden forces can woman free herself from their spell. For while man's mask protects him, it also governs her if she remains blind to it. This knowledge is not meant to breed contempt, but consciousness. To see the mask is to see humanity struggling with itself. The goal is not to accuse, but to awaken, to bring both man and woman into the same light. For when illusion falls, authenticity becomes possible. And in that authenticity, love may finally take root not as possession or performance, but as meeting between souls. Therefore, I will reveal to you now 3 dark secrets. Dark not because they are evil, but because they dwell in shadow. They are the hidden mechanisms of the mask, the unseen forces that govern man's behavior toward woman. Once you know them, you will never again be deceived by the surface. You will read the soul beneath the gesture, the fear beneath the charm, the wound beneath the control, and through this knowledge, you will become free. Freedom, however, does not come without cost. To see through illusion means to stand alone for a time. You will walk among the blind and feel their discomfort with your sight. You will hear men call you cold or arrogant because you no longer play the part of the mirror. But in that solitude, your strength will crystallize. You will learn to distinguish love from dependency, admiration from projection, companionship from captivity. The purpose of these 3 secrets is not to turn you against men, but to turn you toward truth, to awaken in you the power of discernment that has long slept beneath cultural conditioning and romantic fantasy. When you understand the psychology of the mask, you can love without illusion and depart without hatred. You will see that every man, beneath his disguise, is both frightened and divine, capable of cruelty yet destined for consciousness. These secrets, then, are not weapons but lamps. They will illuminate the mechanics of attraction, the patterns of deception, the hidden exchange between masculine and feminine. Through them, you will learn how to see the man not as he wishes to appear, but as he is divided, longing, unfinished. And in seeing him truly, you will cease to be governed by his darkness. You will also glimpse a deeper truth, that his awakening depends upon yours. For when you refuse to be deceived, you invite him to meet himself. When you no longer serve as mirror for his illusion, you become mirror for his soul. This is how transformation occurs, through the courage to see without fear. So listen closely. What follows are not accusations but revelations. I will show you, one by one, the 3 dark secrets men hope you never discover. They are not separate from one another. They are layers of the same disguise. When you understand them, the mask will lose its power, and the mirror will return to its rightful purpose, not to reflect illusion, but to reveal truth. Secret I, the man who mirrors your desire. The first secret is this: many men do not love you for who you are, but for what they see reflected in your eyes. They love the image you cast upon them, the light that flatters their darkness. They intuit, often without knowing it, the kind of man you long to find, and they become him. It is not always conscious deception. More often, it is the mimicry of the unconscious, which learns early that to be loved is to perform. They sense the ideal you carry within the man who listens, who protects, who understands, and like actors, they step into the role with instinctive precision. This mirroring is the root of much confusion in love. You believe you have found the one who finally sees you, yet in truth he only reflects your own ideal back to you. He has read your gestures, the tone of your laughter, the shadow in your voice when you speak of past disappointments. From these fragments, he constructs an image of what you crave. Then he becomes it attentive, kind, attuned to every word. You feel recognized at last, but what you experience is not being seen, it is being mirrored. The difference is subtle, yet profound. Projection is the invisible architect of this illusion. You, too, are a participant in the spell, for the unconscious always seeks its own reflection in another. The woman projects her unlived potential, her ideal of love, her image of completion onto the man. The man receives this projection as power. It makes him feel divine. He senses her faith in him, her awe, her devotion, and it intoxicates him. The mirror begins to shine on both sides. She sees in him her ideal. He sees in her his validation. Two reflections face one another, infinite and hollow. The charm that feels like destiny is often nothing more than this dance of mirrors. It is archetypal, ancient as the myth of Narcissus, yet here the roles are reversed. The woman does not drown by gazing at her reflection in a pool. She drowns by loving her reflection in a man. What she calls chemistry is recognition of her own ideal, disguised as another's soul. And when that ideal begins to fade, when the mask slips, she feels betrayal. She believes he has changed, become distant, cruel. In truth, he was never real. She was in love with her own image, clothed in his words. Such men are experts in the unspoken. They observe tone, gesture, silence. They notice the stories that move you, the virtues you praise, the wounds you carry. They shape themselves accordingly, sometimes unconsciously, sometimes deliberately. They become the echo of your longing. Their apparent empathy is not born of depth, but of adaptation. They reflect what they sense you wish to see until you cannot distinguish your soul from their performance. The danger lies not in their malice, but in your blindness. There is a difference between true empathy and imitation. True empathy arises from stillness. Imitation arises from hunger. The empathic man listens because he wishes to understand. The mimetic man listens to discover what will bind you to him. His understanding has no root in being, only in survival. He needs your admiration to confirm his existence. Without your attention, his reflection fades, and he feels himself vanish. Thus he clings to you not for love, but for identity. He needs you to believe in the image he has borrowed from your heart. You will know him by certain signs. He adapts too quickly, agrees too easily, flatters too precisely. He changes his tone to match yours, his beliefs to align with yours, his desires to fulfill yours. At first, this feels like harmony. Later, it feels like suffocation. You begin to notice that his words echo yours. His emotions follow your lead. He seems too perfect, too understanding, too much like what you always hoped to find. And then, slowly, the illusion unravels. He grows restless, withdrawn, irritated by your individuality. The mirror begins to crack. When the woman finally asks, "Who are you really?" the man cannot answer, because he does not know. He has lived so long as reflection that he has no substance of his own. His feelings are borrowed, his opinions rehearsed. Without an audience, he collapses inward. He confuses authenticity with exposure and flees from the intimacy he once promised. She, in turn, feels abandoned and deceived, but he cannot give what he does not possess. His love was never a gift, it was a performance designed to elicit love in return. This revelation is painful, yet necessary. It shows how projection binds both man and woman in illusion. The woman believes she has met her ideal, the man believes he has become it. Both are caught in the theater of the unconscious, playing roles written by ancestral archetypes. The lover, the savior, the muse, all are masks of longing. Until the woman learns to withdraw her projection, she will repeat the pattern endlessly, mistaking reflection for relationship. To withdraw projection is an act of courage. It means admitting that what you loved was not him, but the dream he mirrored. It means mourning the loss of illusion and accepting the man as he is ordinary, limited, human. Most cannot do this. They cling to the fantasy even as it collapses, blaming themselves or him rather than seeing the deeper truth, that love without consciousness is merely the meeting of two needs disguised as devotion. The woman who awakens from this spell enters a new stage of maturity. She no longer demands that a man fulfill her ideal, nor does she fall in love with imitation. Her gaze becomes clear. When she meets a man who mirrors rather than reveals, she feels the emptiness beneath his charm. She senses the absence of center, the echo where a voice should be. The flattery that once intoxicated her now feels heavy, artificial, false. She smiles, thanks him, and walks away, unbound. The man who mirrors your desire cannot love authentically because he has not yet discovered his own being. He lives through others as the actor lives through roles. To love him is to feed his hunger for validation until you are hollow. His affection will last only as long as you sustain his illusion. When you cease to mirror him perfectly, when you assert your difference, your independence, he will recoil. He cannot bear the confrontation with reality, for reality dissolves the image on which his identity depends. But take heart, there are men who have passed through this mirror and returned whole. They have faced the emptiness behind imitation and chosen to seek their own center. Such a man does not mirror. He reflects truth. He does not flatter. He reveals. His empathy arises not from hunger but from presence. He will not promise perfection, but his imperfection will be sincere. You will feel not intoxicated, but calm in his company, not dazzled, but grounded. To reach such love, the woman must first reclaim her projection. She must learn to recognize when her own ideal blinds her to reality. She must see that the longing for completion is not a signal to search outward, but inward. When she no longer seeks reflection in another, she begins to meet men as they are, not as she wishes them to be. Then, and only then, can she love the soul behind the mask, not the mask itself. The liberation comes in stages. First, the grief of disillusionment, the death of the dream. Then, the clarity of seeing, the recognition that illusion was never love. And finally, the peace of discernment, the ability to distinguish presence from performance. This is the wisdom that ends repetition. The woman who attains it cannot be deceived, for she no longer deceives herself. She no longer demands that a man be her reflection. She asks only that he be real. In that moment, love ceases to be possession and becomes revelation. The mirror is no longer a trap but a tool. She sees herself and the man clearly, two beings journeying through their own depths, meeting where consciousness touches consciousness. The mask falls away not through accusation but through understanding. For the man who is truly seen can no longer sustain illusion. Her gaze restores him to himself. Thus the first secret is unveiled. The man who mirrors your desire is not your destiny, but your initiation. Through him, you learn to recognize projection, to reclaim your power, to love reality over reflection. You learn that to meet another's soul, you must first meet your own. And when that truth takes root, you will never again mistake imitation for intimacy, nor charm for depth. You will love as one who sees. Secret 2, the man who controls through silence. There is a kind of man who does not wound with words, but with their absence. He governs not through argument, but through withdrawal. His silence is not the stillness of peace, but the cold shadow of power. At first, it seems mysterious, an aura of composure, a depth that invites imagination. Yet soon the woman feels something else beneath it: uncertainty, unease, the sensation of standing before a closed door that never opens. She begins to speak more softly, explain more often, apologize without knowing why. She calls this love, but what she has entered is submission to a silence that was never sacred. This is the second secret. Silence, in the hands of the unconscious man, becomes a weapon. To understand it, one must look at its roots in the male psyche. From childhood, men are taught to equate control with strength and emotion with danger. To feel deeply is to risk collapse. So, when confronted with the intensity of the feminine, her emotion, her intuition, her need for honesty, he retreats. He does not know that what she offers is not chaos, but connection. To him, her voice is not music, but threat, and thus he answers it with the only defense he knows: silence. But this silence is not neutral. It is heavy with meaning. It speaks, "You have said too much. You have felt too deeply. You are too much." It punishes without word, shaping the atmosphere of the relationship until the woman adjusts herself to avoid its return. He does not need to raise his voice. She begins to regulate her own. This is how the subtle tyranny of the wounded masculine begins, not through violence, but through withdrawal. In Jungian terms, this is the shadow of Saturn, the cold, withholding father archetype that demands order at the price of love. It is the same energy that builds civilizations yet forgets how to nurture souls. The man ruled by this archetype believes his restraint is wisdom, his silence dignity, but when divorced from consciousness, his composure becomes cruelty. He mistakes suppression for mastery, indifference for peace. In truth, he is terrified. His silence shields him from emotion that might expose his own vulnerability. What he fears most is being penetrated by feeling his or hers. To the woman, his silence awakens something ancient within. She feels again the old hunger to be chosen by the one who withholds affection. She hears in his distance the echo of a father's absence, the wound of childhood repeating itself beneath the veil of romance. Her unconscious begins its familiar labor. If I can make him speak, if I can make him stay, I will finally be worthy. Thus the pattern deepens. The more he withdraws, the more she reaches. The more she reaches, the more he withdraws. Soon her days revolve around interpreting his moods. She analyzes every gesture, every pause, every glance. The silence grows louder than speech. When he finally speaks, his words seem prophetic, for scarcity makes them sacred. She begins to measure her worth by his tone, her success by his attention. He has achieved what every tyrant seeks, dominion through dependence. Yet he does not understand the power he wields. It is unconscious. He calls his detachment maturity, unaware that it is fear in disguise. In such relationships, the woman's spirit contracts. She becomes cautious, careful, strategic. She hides her true thoughts, lest they provoke distance. Her laughter diminishes, her intuition dims, her vitality fades. She begins to live in anticipation, waiting for the silence to end, for warmth to return, for a word that will restore what she has lost. She does not yet realize that the silence will never end, for it was never about her. It was his fortress against himself. To see through this pattern requires immense courage. It means recognizing that silence in such men is not mystery, but manipulation. It is the projection of their own shame. When they withdraw, they are punishing the feminine not for wrongdoing, but for stirring emotions they cannot face. They use absence to reassert control, to regain superiority in a field where they secretly feel inferior. Every withheld word becomes a barrier between them and their own soul. Yet, it is not enough to condemn them. One must understand that their silence mirrors the collective wound of the masculine spirit. For centuries, men have been taught to define themselves by control of nature, of circumstance, of emotion. The result is a generation of men who cannot speak truthfully because truth feels like exposure. The feminine presence confronts them with what they have long denied: feeling, intuition, interconnection. Her voice calls them into relationship with life itself, and that summons terrifies them. So they retreat into the familiar refuge of quiet power. But what they call power is often paralysis. They believe they are withholding to protect the relationship from conflict, yet in truth they are destroying it. Intimacy cannot survive silence, for silence kills more surely than cruelty. A harsh word can be forgiven, absence cannot. Every moment of withdrawal teaches the woman that her voice has no place, her truth no value. She begins to adapt to the rhythm of repression, mistaking endurance for strength. The woman who sees must not attempt to break the silence by force. To plead, to argue, to chase is to descend into his shadow. Her task is not to make him speak, but to remain anchored in her own truth. The more she demands words, the more he will retreat. The more she stands calmly in her presence, the more his silence loses its power. For silence feeds on reaction. It thrives on uncertainty. When she no longer bends beneath it, it collapses into what it always was, fear pretending to be wisdom. To answer silence with sovereignty is a rare art. It requires the woman to trust her intuition even when it is denied. She must see that his withdrawal is not evidence of her fault, but of his weakness. She must cease translating his absence into self-blame. Instead, she must let his silence reveal him. What he withholds out of pride, life will expose through consequence. The man who hides behind silence will one day find himself unheard, surrounded by those who no longer wait for his words. In mythic terms, the woman who resists this spell becomes the voice of Persephone, emerging from the underworld. She reclaims speech as sacred act. She says what is true, even if it is met with emptiness. She refuses to let fear dictate expression. Her words are not pleas, but declarations. I will not inhabit a love that requires my silence. Such a statement is not rebellion, it is restoration. It restores the balance between masculine and feminine by refusing to collude with repression. To the man, such courage can be both threatening and healing. At first, he may react with greater withdrawal, mistaking her firmness for attack. But if there is any spark of consciousness within him, her integrity will awaken it. He will feel, perhaps for the first time, the poverty of his own silence. He may begin to speak not to defend, but to confess. And in that confession, a new kind of strength is born, the courage to be known. But the woman must not wait for this transformation. She must live as though it may never come. For the lesson of this secret is not how to change the silent man, but how to remain whole in his presence. Her freedom lies not in his awakening, but in her refusal to shrink. She must learn to find peace not in his return, but in her own stillness. Then, if he returns, it will be to meet her as equal. If he does not, she will not be diminished. In the end, his silence is his teacher. It will either destroy him or redeem him. For no one can remain forever hidden from the soul. The words he refuses to speak will echo in his dreams, his failures, his solitude. And one day, perhaps, he will realize that his control was only fear wearing a crown. Then, and only then, will he be ready to meet the feminine, not as threat, but as mirror of his own unlived depths. The woman who understands this no longer interprets silence as mystery. She reads it as symptom. She no longer softens herself to maintain connection. She remains whole and lets the silence fall away. Her presence becomes her reply. Her calm becomes her answer. And through her steadfastness, she teaches not through persuasion, but through being. For the silence that once ruled her now serves her. It becomes the space in which she hears her own truth most clearly. Thus, the second secret is unveiled. Men who have not made peace with their own vulnerability use silence to control what they cannot understand. Their withdrawal is not power, but defense. When the woman ceases to take it personally, when she meets absence with presence, the spell is broken. She walks free, not because he has changed, but because she no longer confuses his fear with her fault. And once she learns this, no silence can rule her again. Secret 3. The man who hides his weakness behind strength. The third secret is the most deceptive, for it wears the noblest disguise. It is the secret of the man who appears strong, self-assured, commanding, capable of leading others, yet whose strength conceals not mastery, but fear. He conquers not because he is free, but because he is terrified of powerlessness. Every act of control, every display of confidence, every declaration of certainty is a ritual designed to keep his hidden weakness from surfacing. He believes himself a king, yet he serves a tyrant within. To the world, he is admirable. He works tirelessly, provides reliably, speaks with authority. He seems to carry the weight of others with ease, but those who live close to him know another truth. His strength demands constant attention. It cannot be questioned, only praised. He fears nothing more than the moment he might be seen as ordinary, uncertain, or dependent. To maintain the image, he must keep others small, and the woman beside him becomes the stage upon which this secret drama unfolds. The archetype of the false king captures this dynamic. In ancient myth, the true king rules through harmony with the divine order. His power serves life. The false king, however, rules through domination. He believes that to lose control is to lose existence. His authority is built not upon wisdom, but upon denial. He represses tenderness, humility, doubt, the very qualities that would make him whole. He surrounds himself with obedience because he cannot bear reflection. The slightest challenge awakens his hidden terror of inadequacy. He does not know that his real enemy is within. The woman, entering his orbit, mistakes his certainty for safety. She feels secure in his decisiveness, his apparent direction, his ability to take charge. At first, it feels comforting to rest in the presence of such stability. Yet soon she notices that his strength demands submission. Her independence disturbs him. Her opinions irritate him. Her intuition threatens him. Beneath his composure lies a trembling need to be affirmed. He does not love her vitality. He feeds upon it. Her admiration sustains his illusion, and without it, he begins to unravel. His control takes many forms: criticism disguised as guidance, jealousy disguised as devotion, protection that feels like possession. He claims to act for her, good, yet his actions slowly diminish her spirit. He requires her to orbit his certainty, to reassure him of his grandeur, to conceal his fragility from the world. When she falters, he grows cold. When she shines, he grows distant. He cannot celebrate her autonomy because it reminds him of his dependence. He calls her emotional, irrational, unstable, while secretly envying the very depth he condemns. This is how unhealed insecurity manifests as dominance. The man who has not faced his own weakness must project it outward. He divides the world into the strong and the weak, and he chooses his side with desperate conviction. He cannot admit that both dwell within him, that strength without humility becomes tyranny, and humility without strength becomes submission. He lives in exile from balance. The more he asserts control, the more chaotic his inner life becomes. He cannot rest, for rest would expose the emptiness beneath his effort. Such men often achieve worldly success. They rise in positions of influence, admired for their discipline, their endurance. But beneath their achievements lies fatigue. They are haunted by a question they dare not ask. What would remain of me if I stopped striving? They fear that without their power, their identity would vanish. And so they continue commanding, competing, conquering, chasing affirmation to drown the voice that whispers, "You are not enough." To love such a man is to live in the shadow of his denial. The woman becomes both sanctuary and scapegoat. When he feels fragile, he retreats to her tenderness, seeking restoration. When he feels strong again, he resents her for having witnessed his weakness. Her compassion becomes the mirror of his dependency, and he shatters it with cruelty. He cannot tolerate her empathy, for it reminds him of what he lacks. He alternates between gratitude and contempt, intimacy and distance. She, bewildered, calls this complexity. In truth, it is contradiction. The contradiction, unconscious contract between them is ancient. She sustains his illusion of might by surrendering her autonomy. As long as she believes in his strength, he can continue denying his fear. But the moment she sees through it, his world begins to crumble. He feels exposed, humiliated, betrayed. He may rage, withdraw, or seek another woman who has not yet learned to see. For he is addicted to admiration, as others are addicted to breath. Without it, he feels he cannot live. There are signs by which the false strength reveals itself. He grows angry when questioned, defensive when advised. He mocks emotion, calling it weakness. He avoids introspection, calling it indulgence. He measures his worth by victory, not by understanding. He cannot apologize without resentment. In moments of vulnerability, his eyes dart as if searching for an exit. He surrounds himself with lesser minds to preserve his illusion of superiority. And yet, in quiet moments, you may glimpse the child behind the mask, the one who learned long ago that to survive, he must never be small again. When the woman finally sees this truth, she feels a mixture of pity and sorrow. She realizes that the strong man is fragile precisely because he cannot bend. He has built a tower so tall that he cannot descend without fear of collapse. His pride has become his prison. She sees that no amount of devotion can free him, for his chains are internal. To stay is to become his caretaker. To leave is to become his mirror. Both roles awaken his rage, yet only one path preserves her soul. Her liberation begins the moment she stops mistaking control for strength. She recognizes that the man who cannot kneel before truth is not powerful but afraid. She sees that his command is the posture of a heart that cannot trust. And with this recognition comes compassion, not sentimental pity, but the quiet sorrow of understanding how many men have been taught that to be loved, they must be invulnerable. She grieves for him, but she no longer sacrifices herself to console him. True strength, she learns, is not domination but integration, the harmony of firmness and humility. A man who possesses this strength does not fear emotion, for he knows it deepens his humanity. He can admit when he is wrong, for truth is his ally, not his threat. He can weep without shame, lead without pride, protect without possession. Such a man stands in his own authority. He does not need a woman to hold it for him. In his presence, the woman feels safe because she is free. Yet such men are rare, for they are forged in fire. They have walked through the collapse of their own illusion, faced their own impotence, endured the humiliation of defeat. They have discovered that weakness is not the opposite of strength, but its foundation. Only he who has trembled before his own shadow can stand without trembling before the world, and only he who knows his dependence can love without enslaving. When the woman meets such a man, she recognizes him not by his words, but by his silence, the silence that listens, not withholds. His power does not demand submission, it invites presence. His humility does not diminish him, it completes him. He does not shrink from her radiance, nor compete with her insight. He sees her not as extension, but as counterpart. With him, the ancient tension between strength and vulnerability resolves into harmony. The woman who has learned this final secret ceases to chase power in others. She no longer confuses leadership with wisdom, nor dominance with devotion. She knows that a man's true nobility lies not in how he commands, but in how he serves truth. When she meets a man who hides weakness behind strength, she feels it instantly, the brittle edge in his voice, the restless need to assert. She smiles inwardly, knowing that his power depends on her ignorance, and she grants him neither fear nor flattery. She lets his mask fall of its own weight. Thus, she steps out of the ancient dance of domination and submission. She no longer plays the roles, the unconscious demands, the adoring subject, or the silenced companion. She becomes sovereign, standing in equality with all who can meet her in consciousness. Her vision transforms her love. It becomes choice, not compulsion. She sees that the purpose of relationship is not to complete one another, but to awaken each other. And so, the third secret stands revealed. Men hide weakness behind strength not because they are evil, but because they are afraid to be small. They have been taught to despise dependency, to worship control, to equate tenderness with defeat. But their hidden weakness governs them more completely than any enemy could. Until they face it, they will wound those who love them most. The woman's task is not to heal this wound, but to refuse to participate in its disguise. Her seeing becomes his invitation to awakening. In time, if he accepts the invitation, his false strength will dissolve, and from beneath it, the true man will emerge humble, powerful, whole. And if he does not, she will walk away without regret, for she has learned that real power needs no domination, that real love requires no illusion, and that her freedom was never his to give or take. Outrow, the eye that sees the mask. When the woman has seen through the three masks, a silence of another kind descends, not the silence of control, but the silence of comprehension. It is not born of defeat, but of depth. She no longer needs to argue, to prove, or to explain, for her seeing itself is enough. Her vision has matured into something clear and still, like the surface of a deep lake. Those who come near her sense this stillness. Some are drawn to it, others flee. It has the gravity of truth. The woman who has learned these secrets no longer lives as prey to illusion. She moves through the world with an unseen power, not loud, not forceful, but steady, unshakable. She no longer confuses flattery for love, nor silence for wisdom, nor dominance for strength. She has learned to read the language of the unconscious, that men speak without knowing it. She knows when words hide fear, when gestures conceal dependency, when power masks insecurity. She listens not to what is said, but to what trembles beneath. This seeing does not make her cold. On the contrary, it awakens compassion of the rarest kind, the compassion that is born from understanding. She no longer hates men for their blindness. She sees the boy still trapped within them, the soul imprisoned behind the mask. She knows that their control, their silence, their charm were never purely malice, but misguided attempts to protect a fragile self from annihilation. Her anger dissolves, not into forgiveness offered like charity, but into insight. They knew not what they did. And yet, compassion does not mean captivity. She no longer sacrifices herself to soothe the wounded masculine. She blesses without binding, loves without losing, sees without serving illusion. Her empathy is no longer the soft pity that once entangled her. It has become a flame that burns away falsehood. Those who approach her now must come unveiled. Her presence itself demands honesty, for deception cannot breathe in her atmosphere. When she meets men now, she sees clearly who stands before her. She recognizes the mirroring man by the quickness of his adaptation, the way he watches her eyes for approval rather than understanding. She recognizes the silent one by the weight of unspoken fear that hangs around him, by the emptiness that he mistakes for calm. She recognizes the man of false strength by the rigidity of his confidence, by the subtle tremor of control beneath his command. And she passes them all with quiet grace, offering neither judgment nor submission. She has nothing to prove, nothing to win, nothing to lose. This discernment frees her from the compulsions of the past. She no longer seeks to be chosen, for she knows her worth is not a reward, but a reality. She no longer fights to be understood, for understanding is the gift of those who have eyes to see. She no longer measures love by its intensity, but by its truth. When a man enters her life now, she does not ask, "Will he love me?" but "Can we see each other clearly?" And if the answer is no, she departs without bitterness, as one leaves a house whose walls no longer fit the soul. Her intuition, once doubted, has become her compass. It no longer speaks in anxiety or hope, but in certainty. She feels at once when a gesture arises from shadow or from sincerity. She trusts her unease as much as her joy. She no longer argues with her instincts, for she has learned that intuition is not emotion, it is perception. Through it, she communes with the unseen, the same unseen that moves dreams, myths, and the great currents of fate. This is the wisdom the world once called witchcraft, the feminine capacity to see beyond form into essence. The psychic consequence of awakening is solitude. For a time, she may feel apart from the world that continues to worship masks. She watches as others chase reflections, mistake possession for love, call submission devotion. She no longer belongs to that dream, but what once felt lonely now feels sacred. Her solitude is not absence, it is the space in which her soul breathes freely. She walks through life surrounded by the quiet majesty of inner independence, and gradually a new kind of man begins to appear, not conjured by desire, but drawn by resonance. He does not fear her intelligence, nor shrink before her insight. He does not seek to impress or dominate. He has faced himself, and thus he recognizes her. Between them arises a silence, unlike the one she once knew, not the cold silence of withdrawal, but the living silence of communion. Words become unnecessary, for presence speaks enough. There is no mirroring, only reflection, no control, only correspondence. Their love becomes a reflection, dialogue between two awakened souls. Through such love, the collective begins to heal. For every conscious union between man and woman rebalances something in the psyche of the world. The masculine learns to speak, the feminine learns to stand, and the eternal dance between them becomes creative again. This is how evolution moves, not through revolution or conquest, but through the slow alchemy of awareness spreading from one heart to another. The woman's awakening also frees men, though many will not see it at first. For as she withdraws projection, as she refuses to participate in illusion, men are forced to meet themselves. They can no longer hide behind the masks that once worked so easily. Her clarity calls them into being. Some will flee this demand, others will rise to it. The man who rises will feel at first the pain of exposure, but beneath it, he will discover the relief of authenticity. He will thank her, silently perhaps, for not believing his disguise. Her new power lies in her stillness. She no longer seeks to persuade or prove. She does not teach by explanation, but by example. Her life itself becomes instruction. Others watch her choices and feel something awaken in themselves, a memory of freedom, a longing for integrity. In her eyes, they glimpse what it means to be whole. This is her gift to the world, to live as one who cannot be deceived because she has learned to see. To see through illusion is not to reject love, but to refine it. She no longer believes love must be blind. She knows it must be visionary. Love, for her, is no longer the fusion of ignorance, but the union of consciousness. It is not the hunger to be completed, but the joy of being mirrored truly. It is not the fever of desire, but the calm flame of presence. Such love does not devour, it illuminates. This seeing restores dignity to both woman and man, for to see another truly is to honor their reality. The woman no longer idolizes men for qualities they do not possess, nor condemns them for shadows they cannot yet overcome. She accepts them as they are souls in process, like herself. Her discernment becomes compassion. Her compassion becomes strength. She loves what is real, and by loving it, she calls it forth. In this new clarity, she understands that the mask of man was never meant to be destroyed, only transcended. For every mask once served a purpose. It allowed him to survive until he could awaken. To tear it away by force would be cruelty. To see beyond it is wisdom. The woman who sees does not humiliate, she liberates. She becomes the mirror in which the soul behind the mask first recognizes itself. This is her sacred role in the drama of consciousness. There will always be those who misunderstand her strength. Some will call her intimidating, others detached. They will say she has lost her softness, not realizing that her tenderness has only deepened, refined by truth. She no longer bleeds for those who wound themselves. She offers light to those who seek healing. Her heart is no longer naive, but it is still open, open like the sky, vast enough to hold both shadow and Sunday. She walks now as mirror and fire, presence and freedom. Her eyes, once clouded by hope and fear, now shine with a steady light, the light of one who has seen the masks and the souls behind them, who has learned the language of silence, the architecture of power, the geometry of illusion. Her life is her message. I see you, and I remain myself. And so, the circle closes. What began as deception ends in revelation. The masks fall away, the mirrors clear, the false strength dissolves. In their place stands a woman who has become whole, a consciousness incarnate, no longer bound by the projections of others, nor by her own. She has passed through illusion into understanding, through pain into wisdom, through blindness into sight. The story is not of men and women alone, but of the soul itself, learning to see. The masculine and feminine within each person must undergo the same transformation. The mask must meet the mirror, the false must meet the true, the image must bow before the self. When this occurs, life regains its sacredness. Relationships become temples of awareness, and love becomes the art of unveiling. The woman who sees is the harbinger of this new consciousness. She does not fight the old world, she outgrows it. She walks quietly through its ruins, planting seeds of vision in the hearts of those still asleep. She knows that every illusion contains its own end, that every mask will one day crack beneath the weight of truth. Her task is not to destroy, but to illuminate. And so she lives not above the world, but within it, radiant, discerning, free. She knows now that no mask can bind her, no silence can command her, no false strength can define her. For she has seen the secret all must one day learn. The power others hold over you ends the moment you see it clearly. She is the woman who sees. The eye of consciousness has opened within her, and through her the world begins to wake.